This is something that I've always felt that I wanted to tell a story. And this is a personal story about my brother. In creating this, I was able to connect with the artwork, connect with God, but also celebrate my brother's life. My grandfather, they came from that era where they weren't allowed to speak Māori, or, you know, they got smacked at school or something. So when we were brought up, Māori was hardly spoken in our house. Alcohol and violence was a normal thing. Growing up was, yeah, quite tough, to be honest. It was pretty tough. But I did have one auntie that really believed in my artistic ability. Every Christmas or my birthday would buy me a pack of felts and just go, oh, you're an amazing artist. And so that was kind of like something that I did to distract myself. When I reflect now, I was always drawing. I was always drawing these alternative spaces that I could escape into. I think when I was about 18, she convinced my grandfather at the time to pay for me to go to art school, because up until then, the only thing I had on my cards was going to the army. I decided to make a pact with myself when I was 27 that I was gonna take my life. So as the clock wound down to that stage, I lived life really extreme, and I didn't care about myself, I didn't care about other people. I was fearless because I didn't have any self-worth. So 27 was coming upon me, and I thought, oh yep, this is the time to tap out, I'm out of here. Started having these dreams about this fella named God. And that was the furthest thing from my world. I ended up going to church, and I ran into one of my friends that became a Christian. He was a muso, super talented guy. And then he told me about the gospel. And when he told me, I was like, oh yeah, good on you, bro. Well done. Hope you're happy. Not knowing that, yeah, this God I was dreaming about was about to knock on the door. So, yeah, long story short, I gave my life to Jesus when I was 27. And so my brother was very artistic. He was into street art, more like tagging and graffiti. But, you know, he was forever getting in trouble because he'd gone down the road of pursuing some sort of gang life. And then my brother started to get into some trouble that was pretty next level. I just remember, you know, hearing that small voice inside of me going, I want you to tell him that you love him. And that's all. So for 9 years, that's all I did. No matter what was going on in his life, whether he was going to jail or, I just make it my mission to find him wherever he was and give him a hug, tell him that I love him. Those hugs, the way I expressed love to him, that gave him a way out of the gang or helped him to think about changing his life. He had done something and actually injured someone pretty bad and had to go to jail for it. After he got out of jail, he came and visited me. I said to him, oh, look, you know, if you want to come down here, I'll help you, you know, get your life right, you and your family. And so my wife and I made an agreement to try and help him out. We helped him and his partner and their kids to find accommodation and a job. And things were going really well. He started coming to church. I was like, man, what are you doing coming to church? trying to tell him not to come to church. And there was nothing wrong with the church whānau, but I was just making sure that maybe he needed to do it for himself, not for me, not to honor me. But he loved it. And in the short period of time, he made new friends, new connections. He was bringing his family to church. They were learning about God. And I could see there was change coming along. And then 3 weeks into him coming to church, he stood up one Sunday and gave his heart to the Lord. And he came to tell me one day that he was going to go to court and support his brother-in-law. He had done something. And so I said, oh, nah, man, don't go, you know, blah, blah, blah. I was kind of like having a bad day at the office. And yeah, the encounter was a little bit rough. You know, I wasn't there. I was just like, oh, yeah, see you later. And I didn't see him again. That was the last time I saw him alive. Yeah. The next time I saw him would be to identify his body. So, yeah, pretty tough. The cop said that, you know, my brother had passed away and that he was stabbed to death by his partner in an altercation. And I was overwhelmed emotionally. Closed my eyes, hoping it would be a dream, and then realized it wasn't a dream. And the first thing that came to my head was like, revenge. And so I knew what hate tasted like, and I knew what heartache tasted like. So, man, I just snapped out of it straight there, and I realized, oh man, that can't be the option. And so I opened my eyes and I looked at the police officer and I said to him, I forgive her. And he was like, eh? A little bit startled. I forgive her. Friends were turning up with food, and they were starting to prepare for my whānau coming down. So, you know, big pots of boil up and watercress and you name it. It was all coming in. Money, people turning up, just this outpouring of generosity and love and aroha. And then I thought, oh, hang on, this other family of the person that had just taken my brother's life, no one's supporting them. So I just said to a couple of my friends that I wanted to support them. So we took all the kai and we supported that family for 3 days. My brother's boy, my namesake, witnessed his mum kill their dad. And he was being questioned by the police at the time, and I had to go and pick him up. When the interview was finished, I was able to see him, and the first thing he asked me was, Uncle, take me to the hospital to see my dad. I want to go and see him. He'll be okay. He's in hospital. But the young fella didn't know that his dad had passed on. And he just looked at me and he goes, I hate my mum. I hate her. And just the intensity. And then he looked at me and he goes, I hate my mum. And he was waiting for me to kind of go, yeah, me too, you know? In that moment, he was like, man, this young guy's asking me for permission to hate his mum. Whatever I say now, I could condemn him to like a life of hate. And he'd have every excuse to be the baddest hombre because of what he's witnessed. So I knew I kind of like had his life in my hands. And I just said, oh boy, you know, your mum regrets what she's done. And you got to love your mum. She's your only mum you've got. That was my line that I went to. I don't even know where that came to. And then he looked at me and he hugged me and he just goes, I love my mum, I love my mum. And, you know, in reflection, that's probably one of the most powerful moments in that journey. Yeah. What I thought I knew about my faith or what I believed, man, was just challenged to the core, you know, in terms of having to choose forgiveness instead of revenge, loving a God that you are declaring is good even though tragedies happen. And then, you know, some of my brothers, his mates and his gang member mates, his associates, come over and asked me if they could seek revenge. Well, all I could say to him was like, oh man, you know, you love my bro, eh? And he was like, yeah, I love your bro. I said, you'd do anything for his kids, eh? And they're like, yeah, anything for his kids, for the bro's kids, yep, anything. Well, then if you go and harm their family, you harm these kids, and then you harm my bro by doing that, seeking revenge. Oh man, he wasn't happy, eh? He looked at me by his own confession. He knew that he couldn't do anything because what I had said to him was truth. And so nothing happened to the whānau. When my friend encouraged me to do street art, I found a medium that puts it in the public view. This mural is core values of what whānau would look like. Sometimes I think we don't have a healthy perspective or we got pillars missing. So this mural is about having those pillars, you know, in your families. Greatest thing that I learned on this journey was about systemic domestic violence, that my brother's partner picked the knife up, took his life because she had witnessed her dad do the same thing her whole life. The violence that she was subjected to, that's the way it was dealt with in her family. And so that actually led us into starting a creative program. My wife and I, we stepped out, started a business. We run workshops in schools with kids that are in trauma, where we use arts, building bikes, DJing, anything that's gonna distract so we can have a powerful conversation, heart to heart. This is just something that we wanted to do, that we believed in. So if I can put something up that's got aroha, kindness, prosperity for your family, perseverance, resilience, if that can be put on the street and you can see that, then maybe you can take, one person can take hope out of that. What is Jesus to me? Yeah. Trust. That's what Jesus is to me, trust.